Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, From Blueprint to Visualization. I'm Anthony Temperante, Head of Sales and Marketing, and with me is my colleague, Mark.
Hello, I'm Mark Collis. I'm Salsita's Configurator Implementation Lead. And what that means is that I'm the one that gets the exciting job of dealing with our customers, understanding their requirements, and making sure that we translate that into a configurator that meets all of their dreams.
All right. So the high-level agenda for today, we will be discussing some of the insights within the industry, some key insights. We will obviously be giving a real-life demo or two.
Absolutely.
I think that will be important for everyone to see all the great features and how this is playing out. And then we will talk about the ROI and some of the future trends that is starting to come to fruition, as well as what we think is down the line. All right, Mark. So first thing, insights. About 63% of manufacturers are adopting digital technologies. Of course, that's a very broad spectrum, but the main reason why they're continuing to adopt and continue to use is for streamlining operations, reduction in operations, and other OpEx costs. Companies using CPQ software are reporting a 10x improvement in quoting speed and a 95% reduction in errors.
Absolutely. And companies that don't do this are missing the boat.
Yeah. And lastly, 40% of companies are leveraging the advancing visualization tools and seeing a 40% reduction in their project timelines. Thanks, of course, to these tools, right? So we're not just talking classic CAD, but obviously going deeper into 3D modeling and other tools.
Yeah, using automation wherever possible.
All right. Now, let's jump into some of the challenges that we're noticing across the general construction or fabrication industry. So we kind of touched about this, there's our operational costs, right? So there are still a lot of manual steps in the process. And imagine the more manual steps you have, the more manual errors you can have. Obviously, when you're dealing with then more customized, then you can have longer sales cycles or longer even just design cycles, right? Just to get to that output. And again, we're talking about errors can be, bubbling up across the different steps within that process. So in the very beginning and the very first few touch points, you have the sales teams and some of the designers, then you move it into the manufacturing aspect, and then you want to get that quote. And during those steps, a lot of errors.
And in this industry, you have very complex products, which are essentially made up of lots of smaller products. You have lots of components, and the overall solution that the customers need is a big picture. It's a whole site.
Yes.
But the product that's being sold to them is made up of lots of smaller components, some of which vary in size or length, vary in color. They all need to be added together and make a whole, but at the same time, the end customer isn't interested in doing it bit by bit. So we need automation to help support that.
Yeah, and I think those, when we talk about the dimensions and the size, I mean, that's you can't mess up on some of these sizes, right? You have to be precise. Yeah, this is something that there is really no room for error. And we're not talking just the human error. We're talking the measurements themselves. They have to fit perfectly together.
Yeah.
All right. And other challenges for outdoor living or outdoor specific products, the customers are expecting tailored solutions. So whether it's a pergola, a greenhouse, a shed, these are objects and buildings, or these are kind of like buildings that need to fit precisely to their location, right, and precisely to their needs. And these products usually have a lot of multiple interdependent attributes or variables.
Absolutely. It's really important to get the business logic right, because these are complex products, and when they are successful, they tend to become even more complex products because more options get added, and some of these options are not compatible with some other options. And it's very often the case that as this extends, you have a wider range of incompatible options. And it's really important to be able to capture all of those within our software to make sure that you can't create an invalid configuration.
Right.
We automatically validate every single configuration every step along the way to make sure it fits all of the custom business rules.
Yeah.
And that allows you to be sure that there are no errors creeping into the system. You can also prompt the users with why a particular combination is not valid, so that it gives them the information they need to go back and change their minds. If they decide that option B is what they really need, then maybe option D needs to be deselected. It's really important to capture this to make sure that everyone understands the product and how the different options fit together.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we haven't really touched upon, but within the outdoor living or within the construction industry, a lot of people who are using configurators aren't necessarily the end customer, right? They're partners, they're dealers, they're remote sales reps, and sometimes they're independent sales reps, right?
Absolutely.
And so if imagine you're using this tool on behalf of the manufacturer. So now the manufacturer needs to set these people up for success.
Yes.
So if you're not setting up your partner, your distribution, leaders and independent users out there, then you're not going to get what you need on the end.
It's all about having two levels. So the sales partners need to be able to quickly use the configurator to jump to the option that best suits their end customer, while at the same time having the power to select lots of different options.
Right.
And then the final stage is that they want something that looks nice so they can then show it to their final customer. So once they have chosen all the options, you can generate a link that says, here's a view-only link to what it's going to look like. And you send that to their end customer. And the end customer is then happy because they can see what it looks like. They can move this around in 3D. But at the same time, they don't get all of the technical details and they can't make small changes.
Right. Yeah, very powerful. I think we will definitely be showing some more of this soon. And I think the last part about some of the challenges from outdoor living, which are very similar to the construction and fabrication, is there's lots of errors if you're doing a lot of manual steps through the whole process, and there can be a lot of time with the back and forth. Imagine again you have a distributor who's then first speaking to the end customer, and then they don't know something because there's a lot of manual steps, and they have to come back to the manufacturer. And then who in the manufacturing company are they speaking to? Is it a designer? Is it another sales rep and or an account manager? And that process can really get quite lengthy.
Yeah, if everyone's using the same system, or at the very least they're using systems that are connected together and automatically send details backwards and forwards, it avoids the errors, it saves time. Yeah. And it means you can go from the customer having the desire through to this is what your end solution looks like, and let's order it and get it done. If we can do that really quickly, then the customer is less likely to go elsewhere.
Agreed. All right, thanks, Mark. Let's continue forth with the real life example, right? Yep. I think it's important for everybody to now not just hear what we've discussed, but actually see it in real life.
See what it looks like for real.
Yeah, right. So the first customer of ours that I would like to showcase is a company called Azenko. They build custom pergolas. And I think what's very unique for them is what you see now. This is their live configuration, but it's for their dealers, right? So the end customer is not actually the one who is designing it. That is because there's so many attributes and so many variables that it's part of the maximize the business cycle. The dealers and distributors are the ones who are actually getting on the call, and they're the ones who are making it with the end customers. And I think also these pergolas, they're quite big, and usually the clients are, somebody who's not just asking for one simple one, right? It's more in an industrial or business, golf clubs or business parks, restaurants. So it's quite more and can be quite complex. And in this specific one, I would like to show you. You're presented here sort of from the overhead, the view. And what I will do is you can go and you can select different types of roofs. So you can select the different, or they call them blades, and you can see they all change, which is quite nice because a lot of people have different styles. And I can go back. This isn't a sequential step, right? So you can go back and forth. And in this case, I'm adding more. So now I've stretched it by 2. I can make it an L, right? So I can map it to the specific, designs.
Yeah. It's important to be able to quickly go from the basics to something which looks like the customer site, so they can visualize where it's going to fit inside their particular environment.
Exactly. And here, what we have designed for them are zones. So every single time you add a zone, or you could just call it a pergola, then you can adjust those each. So in this case, I have an L, and I'm going to select the third one on the L side, let's say, and I can actually now change the dimensions. And by simply changing the dimensions, I've shrunk it, and I can obviously go down to the inch or the 1 inch, or if you want to use metric, we can obviously convert that to metric. And then I can go into 3D preview, And now I can bring it down and I can, zoom in and see, how nice it's already looking. And then I exit. And of course, there's many features here, and we don't have time to go for all of them, right this moment. So, but I can unselect the zone, have the nice view again, and then I can go to things, for example, like lighting. And I can select a zone, and then I can add different lights. So I can add LED ramps or LED ramps. And here I have a choice. It says, okay, it gives a nice little snippet. So it tells you what they are. I can add, say, 4 on let's say the top side. I can add then LED ramps on the side. We'll make it 5. And then I can unselect the zone, and I can bring it back into 3D preview, and you can see now the lights underneath.
Yeah. And this is where it's really important to think of the two different users. The actual user of the software is the dealer, and they need to be able to configure it quickly. They need access to all of these different options, but at the same time, they need this 3D preview so that they can show it to the final end customer who will be paying for it and say, doesn't this look cool? Imagine what this looks like next to your building, or in your sports field, or wherever this is going.
Right. And as I mentioned, there's so many abilities here to change things. So again, we talked about walls and beams. So if you want to add a wall, if you want to change the beam itself, and you want to change, the way the posts are, you can do that. So there's many things here, which we have.
At the same time, there are limitations on where you can put these posts, because you can't move the post too far away from the corner or it'll fall down. So you'll also see cues within the configurator as to where you can put your post before you need to add another one in the corner.
Right. And classic things, of course, you have colors, and then we have there's sort of a preset for wood grain, and then you have the RAL colors. We won't go into all those. And then I think what else is quite nice for some people is, you can add also the sensors, so sort of some upsell. So if you want to add the multi-sensors or remote controls, wall controls, you can place those all in. And, again, just to recap, obviously this is quite a complex configurator, or many attributes, many features. We have animation, there's lots of different elements that are involved here. And so you have the nice summary. So the dealer is, very, very happy, right? They've been onboarded with a tool that makes their life extremely easy.
Yeah.
Azenco is extremely happy because they have a dealer who doesn't have to come back to them and is constantly nagging them. Yeah. So I think that's a really great thing. And again, from a visual, from an aesthetic, I am now going to turn this into night, so you can see, again, the lights underneath. And we also have the ability to, close the roof, right? So if they want to see how the roof works. So I think it's a nice little feature. And last but not least, again, once it's submitted, Azenco is getting the same information, the prospect on the end is getting information, and the dealer has
and it's important here that this is completely integrated with Salesforce at the Azenco end. So the dealers love it, but also Azenco themselves have all of this information automatically submitted within their own ERP system. So there is no scope for error, there's no delay, everything is all ready for them to use. Yeah,
this automation is quite powerful, and of course we integrate with many ERPs and CRMs, so these are things that we can do quite easily for other people.
Yeah.
All right, next, Mark, why don't you tell us about our client EasySteel, the railings.
So this is a different customer of ours. This is a railings company. So in this case, what we are configuring is railings to put on a balcony, for example. And what we have here, if we look at the configurator, we start with a simple starting point. So as I was saying, these sorts of products are usually complex products made of lots of smaller pieces. And here we have an example of making it easy. We have a starting point selector. Do we want one section? Do we want 2 sections? Do we want 3 sections? Presets. So you can start with something already made. We can select, say, 2 sections in this case, and go to configure it. And we then see an orthographic view looking down at a plan of subsections.
And I think what's also nice about this is actually for, this is live on their website, right? This isn't hidden for, just dealers or anybody like that. Now, it still is intended for, a more, let's say, constructive or, architect type of audience.
Yeah, so these are users who understand what railings are, understand what it is they want to get, but at the same time, they want the visualization so they can then show it to the end customer of the building they're going to add this to.
So it's maybe a little more, let's say, technically designed.
Yeah. So, for example, we can change the size of one of these things. So we can add a section.
Yeah, very nice.
So we can also see what it looks like. So we can flip from the orthographic view to a 3D view like this. And you'll see here, for example, we still have the distances marked. So for an engineering type user, it's actually really important to have this. For an end consumer, they aren't so bothered about the dimensions, but this configurator is intended for use by the builders, essentially. And you still have options, so you can make it so it's attached to a wall. And you can see here, the wall appears and we have the railing attached to it. We could change the handrail, so if we'd like a wooden handrail, again, we have the options, and you can see visually how the different sorts of wood appear. And go back over to here, you can see that we have different sorts of gloss. So here we have some frosted gloss, we started off with. We can make it clear, or we can make it tinted. So again, you can see the visual effect of the glass, and obviously like any other glass, you can see through it. So you can see through it and you can see the railings on the other side. While at the same time, we can go back to our plan view so that if they want to see how it fits in with the rest of the building, you have this plan view that fits nicely with the rest of the building.
Yep. And then obviously, to go through the whole, to the end, again, it's very similar. You have a summary. Then in this case, this is going directly to the sales reps at Easy Steel, and they're able to pick it up from there and then continue forth with installation or other questions that the end customer, or might have. That.
And you're specifying the site in terms of dimensions and angles, but what you're actually going to generate is a bill of materials of the actual components that are needed for this particular
the boom is probably going to be quite important for these types of projects in these companies, right? They want to have the details.
Moving from a 1 meter long railing to a 5 meter long railing is changing one number, but in terms of the number of different components you need, that's actually quite a complex change. So the configurator needs to do that transformation of taking distance and translating it into, so how many posts do we need along this 5 meter long railing, and therefore which components do we need for these 3 or 4 posts, plus the handrail on the top, plus the bits of glass in between. Right. And it's all of that automatic processing of site information to a whole long list of detailed components, which is really inefficient if you try to do it manually. It's really important to have the automated software do it for you in a fraction of a second, and it's never wrong. Right,
and that's, I think, the important part again about speed. Right, this is really valuable for the sales reps and for the manufacturers here.
Yeah. So that was Easy Steel. That's a good construction example, typical of the sorts of customers we have in this industry. And also, although I've done the demo in English, they are a Scandinavian company. The real configurator is actually in Swedish and Danish. And that also means they have 2 different currencies that we can switch between. And it is fully integrated with WooCommerce, which is the e-commerce solution that you use.
Yeah, and I think just the last point there about the currencies and just the money aspects, right? When you're, we didn't touch upon it, but when you're actually switching and adding new elements or components, the price is changing as well. So we do have the configure price quote, or CPQ, that can be laid out and shown in different formats. So again, different currencies. You can have it on the summary page. You can have it live on every step of the way.
Whatever you need.
Exactly. All right. So let's jump into the return on investment here. So we talked about some of the challenges in the beginning. We gave some real examples. We obviously touched upon some of the benefits already, but I think just to summarize, when you have a 3D configurator like this, right? Faster sales cycle, right? Less human errors, less errors, or even some automated errors, but you're going faster, you're getting better lead quality. Imagine if you don't have a tool like this and you're getting some email from somebody you don't know, and
you're having to sketch things out on a piece of paper, try and draw lines on a picture. It takes far too long in the current business cycle. You will find that your competitor who does have an automated system will jump in ahead of you and get the sale. Yeah,
and you're also, it's not even just the sale, but you don't even know how qualified is that lead, right? Like they might come from a big company, but they just send you some email and you're like, oh, I should really work with them, but you don't really know. Whereas when you have the configurator, they're filling in everything. They're clicking. They've spent the time, right? They pre-qualified themselves.
Yeah.
So they've submitted it, and then you get that information. So both the dealers are happy because they're working with qualified leads, but also in the Easy Steel example, the direct to let's call it consumer, but the audience there is quite there. The other thing about languages is that by putting it into different languages, you can expand your geographic reach. Or it doesn't have to be in just other languages, but the fact is having a 3D configure online does expand your geo, right? You can get people from all over the world quickly submitting different times. They don't have to wait for you to call them back or schedule the calls, right? They do it themselves and they can submit it, so you can do that. And last but not least, there is a wow factor. If you have a very powerful 3D configurator with quality visuals, in a Zenko case, there's animation, right? You take GIFs, take videos, right? You're putting that across your different sales and marketing channels, and the prospects and your dealers and potential partners are seeing this and going, oh, I can now see.
It's the wow factor, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're seeing these impressive visuals. You can see how quickly this can be put together. And it allows you to go very quickly from an idea in your head to a real firm proposal for a configuration for whatever product.
Yeah. And actually, one other thing that kind of popped in my mind here is if you're doing so well with the wow factor, you're probably going to need to scale your business. So if you're scaling your business, you need a tool to scale with you. So if you're going through the distributor or dealer or partner sort of business model, and you want to get more people across different locations and different geos, again, you want to have a tool that they can sell. And then, of course, you're going to be adding new products, and you're going to be wanting to add or adjust as you because different markets have different needs, right? So I think scaling is something that's quite powerful, both on the front end but also the back end, right? Different integrations that are going to be needed. So, all right. So let's talk about the future. So a couple of big trends here. 91% of global customers want real-time assistance. So they're wanting to have whether it's assistance with little, pop-ups that give, clear notes and steps, or guided, right? So you want to be able to have them sort of guided along the way. There's also about 130 billion, in the modular construction, market is going to grow. So I don't see a situation where something like a configurator, which helps you with, snapping modular objects together, right? With those details, I think that's a big number.
Yeah.
So
there's plenty of space to grow.
Yeah, exactly. And last but not least, 71% of, the expected companies are to deliver more of a personalized experience. So I think when you have a 3D configurator that can go to this amount of detail and they can really,
can be fine-tuned for your end client's exact situation.
There you go.
And that's what's important. You're not just picking some presets out of a sales book. You are in front of them, configuring it to exactly match their own particular location, their own particular requirements.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Mark. Thank you. That's exactly right. Okay, so with that, I would like to thank everybody for watching. If you have any questions or would like a personal demo, please send me an email. Mark, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, and thank you all for watching, and I look forward to meeting you if you have some requirements for a configurator. Goodbye.